Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Before we dive headfirst into the chaos that unfolded in that Walmart parking lot, let me paint a quick picture of who I am. Actually, it doesn't matter who I am. It has very little to do with what I'm about to tell you today, to be honest. So just know that I'm a regular 40-year-old woman with a tedious shopping list. You know, the usual drill. Grab some veggies, toss in a bag of chips, because who can resist those, and load up on toilet paper like it's about to go extinct. I honestly never imagined that my mundane trip to Walmart would turn into a bonkers scene straight out of a movie like it did. The encounter I'm about to tell you about starts after I was done shopping and had a cart full of goodies. I head out to the parking lot to hop into my car and drive back home. Nothing too exciting really. But here is where things get, well, interesting. As I'm walking to my car, I spot this elderly lady struggling with her shopping cart. She's trying to maneuver it to her car, but it's clear that this cart has seen better days. And then, out of the blue, one of the wheels decides it's had enough and makes a break for it, causing the lady to lose control over it, and eventually it bumps into one of the parked cars around. And guess who's sitting in that car? You got it. Karen. Now I know what you're thinking, oh no, not a Karen. Yep, we've got a live one. Karen gets out of her scratched-up car, ready to rain down judgment on the poor old lady who's now looking flabbergasted and a bit guilty. Without wasting a second, Karen starts laying into the old lady with a barrage of accusations and colorful language. Meanwhile, I'm just standing there wide-eyed and utterly confused by the craziness I'm witnessing. She was instant on giving the old lady a piece of her mind, loud and clear. As the heated exchange continues, I can't help but feel a growing urge to step in and defend the old lady from Karen's tirade. Without a second thought, I take a deep breath and make my way towards them. It's the classic don't just stand there, do something moment, and I can't let this bullying go unchecked. As I approach, I can practically feel the intensity of Karen's glare burning into me. Before I can utter a word, Karen moves like a storm, shoving me with surprising force. I stumble back, caught off guard by her sudden aggression. As I regain my footing, Karen shifts her attention back to the old lady and she tells her, "You're next, old hag." She heads back to her car, and my heart races as I wonder what she's up to. She opens the compartment of her car, and my mind races through 100 possibilities of what she might pull out. A weapon, perhaps? The situation has escalated far beyond anything I could have anticipated. Karen approaches us once more, holding whatever she retrieved from her car behind her back. And just when it feels like all hope might be lost, a police car creeps onto the scene, inching its way towards us. I don't know whether someone had called them after seeing the altercation, or was they there patrolling around to start with? I didn't really care. All I know is that in that moment, the sight of those flashing lights gave me a sense of relief. As a police car draws closer, Karen's attention shifts, and she clearly starts to panic. But before the cops can fully process what's happening, shots ring out. Bullets strike the police car's windshield, and chaos erupts. Panic and screams fill the air, and everyone around us scatters and seeking cover. I pull over the elderly lady and we duck behind a nearby car. Karen continues firing at the cops who are hunkered down in their car trying to avoid getting hit. And then, something out of a Hollywood movie happens. The cop in the driver's seat shifts the car into drive, guns the engine, and without even flinching, barrels straight towards Karen. It's like a scene from a high-octane action film, except it's happening in a Walmart parking lot. Cop car plows into Karen, knocking her off her feet and effectively ending her rampage. The other cop rushes out of the car, gun drawn, and approaches Karen cautiously. Backup and an ambulance are called, and the scene turns from chaotic to controlled in mere seconds. By this point, I'm still crouched behind the car, peeking out here and there, and the old lady is equally shocked, trying to process the madness she just witnessed. The cops manage to get Karen in handcuffs while she's moaning in pain on the ground. I later learned that our Karen wasn't just your everyday entitled person, she had some serious skeletons in her closet. You see, for someone with a laundry list of felonies and outstanding warrants like Karen, the last thing they want is to have a run-in with the cops. It's like their worst nightmare come true, and they would do just about anything to avoid it. Eventually, the EMTs arrive and tend to Karen's injuries, handcuffed and on a stretcher, she eventually gets wheeled away. The cops stayed behind, taking statements and piecing together what in the world just happened. We give hours and I escort the old lady to her car and ask one of the officers to please make sure she gets back home safely, since I'm not very sure if she'll be able to drive in that state or not. And they comply. They give her a ride home after she told them that she can send her son to retrieve the car from the parking lot later. I go back home, hug my two beautiful daughters and cry, as I got really emotional and cried my eyes out the moment I stepped into my house and saw my beloved family. I mean, I came this close to not seeing them ever again. Anyways, it was just a few days later that I found myself down a rabbit hole of online research trying to make sense of what had transpired. And that's when I stumbled upon a little nugget of information that completely blew my mind. It turns out that in certain situations, police officers are indeed allowed to use their vehicles as a deadly weapon to neutralize a threat. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't exactly paint a pretty picture, but in these high-stress life-or-death situations, officers are trained to make split-second decisions to protect themselves and the public. And if using their vehicle as a means to stop a dangerous individual is the best option in the moment, well, they are allowed to take that route. As for Karen, from what I gathered, she had sustained cuts and bruises, and the impact to the cop car had resulted in a broken leg. The injuries she sustained weren't life-threatening by any means, but they were enough to land her in the hospital for a while, then behind bars for a long time after. And so, my friends, as I wrap up this post, I want to leave you with a simple reminder. In the midst of our routines and everyday tasks, it is easy to forget just how fragile and unpredictable life can be. So let's take a moment to appreciate every laugh, every hug, and every peaceful day, because you never know when things might take a dramatic turn, reminding us to hold our loved ones close and cherish the moments that make life truly special. My name is Tia, and I'm 30 years old. I work in the heart of the city at a successful business. Sam, my wonderful husband, and I have been married for 3 years. In these years, we've built a life together based on our busy jobs, the goals we share, and the way we always support each other. We've had a great time together as a couple, and even though we don't have children yet, we found a great mix between work, personal time, and our shared responsibilities. When it comes to duties, it's no secret that I'm better at taking care of the housework. Whether it's making a tasty meal or making sure our home is clean and comfortable, I do these things with pride and commitment. But life isn't always reliable, and sometimes my hard job requires me to work extra hours, which makes my days longer and my nights later. But my thoughtful husband steps in at those times. He knows how to make a simple but touching meal, so when I come home I always find a warm plate and a friendly smile waiting for me. These actions really show how much we loved and cared for each other. We've been used to a certain pattern in our lives, but that has changed recently. The reason for the change is that my father-in-law, Jack, died about 6 months ago. Jack and Anna, my husband's mother, have been close and lived together for many years. But when Jack left suddenly, Anna was left to figure out life on her own. We all felt the weight of the situation as a family because it was a sudden change. Cameron, who is my husband's brother, and Susan, who is Cameron's wife, chose to move in with Anna so that she would have company and help. It seemed like a good way to keep Anna's spirits up and make sure she wasn't by herself during this hard time. But as time went on, the family's relationships started to fall apart. Anna, Cameron, and Susan had problems with each other, which led to differences and fights that made their home feel tense. Sam, my husband, took on a role of peacemaker when he saw that it was needed. He started going to his parents' house more often to help solve problems and start conversations. At first, I thought that Cameron and Susan were doing fine living with Anna and each other, but it looked like there were problems below the surface that needed to be fixed. Anna's sadness over the death of her husband was very strong. and it sent her into a deep depression. I took time off work to go see her because I knew she needed help right away. I gave her a shoulder to lean on and a hand to guide her through this hard time, but it was Cameron and Susan's work together that really got her on a road to recovery. Slowly but surely, Anna started to get her strength back and see the brighter side of life. Seeing how much she had changed was inspiring and gave us all hope. But just as Anna was getting better, something surprising happened with Sarah, Cameron and Susan's daughter. Sarah was 3 and full of energy. As Anna's health and energy level got better, she decided to change the way she had raised her children. She started yelling at Sarah for the smallest mistakes, even if it was something as simple as how to hold a spoon or how to eat vegetables. Susan, on the other hand, had a more current view of parenting and stressed freedom and self-expression. Anna and Susan's different ideas about how to raise children caused a split between them. And things got worse when Sarah became the battleground for their different ideas. Cameron was stuck in the middle, and it was hard for him to find a middle ground between his wife and his mother, who were both very passionate about what they believed in. Anna's strict way made people look at her funny and worry. Cameron and Susan talked to Anna about how she was very strict with Sarah. They thought there should be a balance between order and freedom. Cameron and Susan came to an understanding that each of them would take care of their own household duties. This was a compromise that seemed to stop the constant fighting. But since they lived under the same roof, it was easy for the lines to blur, and Anna's promise to respect their independence started to fall apart over time. As time went on, Anna became more and more involved in Cameron and Susan's lives, and her actions became more and more intrusive and controlling. Anna's behavior got to a point where it was hard to understand. She got rid of Susan's clothes without her permission because she thought they were old and unfit. Even more shocking, she threw away Sarah's favorite clothes without feeling bad about it, given reasons that seemed silly and ridiculous. Then one day, something happened that would change the way their family worked forever. Susan left Sarah with Anna for a short time while she went to the store to buy food. During that time, Anna decided to cut Sarah's hair short, and she thought this was a good idea because Sarah's hair grew quickly. When Susan got home, she was shocked and confused to see that Sarah had a short haircut. When Susan asked Anna what was going on, feelings were running high, and a fight broke out. Anna wasn't bothered by the chaos she had caused and gave a reason based on what she thought was best for Sarah. Sarah, on the other hand, watched with tears in her eyes, and you could feel how upset she was. Cameron was furious when he heard about what happened. His fight with Anna got worse, and that's when things got the worst. Sam, my husband, stepped in during this tense time to try to bring the two sides together, but as I watched him work, I couldn't get rid of the feeling that something wasn't right. As I thought about the issue, I realized that there was a huge imbalance. Anna and Cameron's relationship was complicated, and my husband's job as a mediator seemed to make things even more confusing. Even though he had good intentions, he was making the problem worse by what he was doing. I told Sam about my worries and stressed how important it was to help Anna understand the effects of her actions and how she had contributed to the problems. But I was surprised when Sam stood up for Anna's actions and said that she was doing what she thought was best. It was clear that his love for his mother was clouding his judgment, which made him a bad referee in this situation. While Sam kept helping Anna and the rest of the family, I watched how his actions affected other people too. Susan told me that Sam's backing had made Anna's behavior worse because it gave her more confidence. It was clear that Anna was using Sam's approval to back up what she was doing, which caused Cameron, Susan, and Anna to grow further apart. As things got worse, it was clear that a breaking point was getting closer. Cameron and Susan decided to leave Anna's house and move to the country to live a more peaceful life. The situation was no longer manageable, and the only way out was to move away from what was causing the trouble. Even though there was chaos, life kept going. As I took care of my own tasks at work and at home, I became less and less interested in what Sam was doing with Anna. When we had different ideas and goals, our marriage, which used to be strong, started to fall apart. When I got home one night after a long hard day, I found a treat waiting for me. Sam brought Anna to our house to live with us without asking me first. I didn't expect his mother to come to our house, so I felt a mix of feelings like surprise, frustration, and a strong need to talk. work. When I told Sam what was going on, he didn't seem to care about how bad it was. He didn't care about my worries or the fact that we needed to talk. Instead, he said that his mother wanted to spend time with us. At that moment, I realized how much he cared about Anna and how hard things were going to get. As the days turned into weeks, Anna's presence in our home made us feel uneasy and tense. Sam's loyalty to his mother was clear, and he was ready to put her happiness ahead of our shared space and well-being. I couldn't ignore the stress on our marriage any longer, so I took a day off from work to think and figure out what to do. During this time, I went to a neighborhood coffee shop to find comfort and a new point of view. As I sipped a warm cup of coffee, I thought about how we got to where we were. A choice I had to make was not easy. I knew that the best way to move forward was to find an answer that put my own health and peace of mind first. I felt the weight of the situation on my shoulders, and that's when I knew I had to talk to Sam and deal with the problems that had led us to this point. I told Sam in a text message that we should meet at the coffee shop after work to talk honestly. But as the hours went by, Sam never showed up. I got more and more frustrated as an hour turned into 2. The fact that he wasn't there was a sign of the problems we were having and the distance that had grown between us. Uncertainty was still in the air when I got back home. The walls of our house felt heavy with words we hadn't said and problems we hadn't fixed. At that moment, I realized how important the choice I had to make was. It was clear that I needed to make a change. I made a plan of action over the next few days, and I started talking to lawyers to make sure the move went smoothly. And I started packing up my things and getting ready for the next part of my life. I had to face the fact that my marriage had become distant and strained, which took courage and drive. It was hard to talk to Sam because there were times when we didn't understand each other. But in the middle of the chaos, I saw clearly that the choice I had to make was not only important for my own growth and happiness, but it was also vital. As the process went on, the legal paperwork was made, talks took place, and limits were set. In the middle of all this chaos, I tried to find peace and healing in my own place, a cozy apartment. During this tough time, the help of close friends and family members was a lifeline that reminded me I wasn't alone on this trip. As time went on, the sight of a furry friend, a cat I named Luna, gave me a sense of comfort and company. Luna's funny acts and friendly presence showed that healing and starting over were possible even when things were hard. As time went on, the lives of the people around me took turns I didn't see coming. Susan, Cameron, and Sarah found peace and quiet in the country, where they enjoyed the life surrounded by nature. Anna and Sam, on the other hand, kept going and found a new place to live. Even though their living situation was not perfect, they had chosen it together. For me, now that my divorce was final and the past was behind me, I jumped at the chance to rediscover my passions, invest in my work, and take care of the relationships that gave my life meaning. I'm not quite sure what you guys thought of my story, but I'd like to know if you agree with the move I made. Or should I have given Sam a chance to straighten up and save our marriage? I know I've already made my choice, but I'd like to know what you would do if you were in my shoes.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.